Twins start this 9-game road trip with a win. They beat Houston 6-1. We're breaking it all down. It's coming up next on the Locked On Twins POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Twins POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back on the lab, back at it. Another Minnesota Twins POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man in the flesh, C.J. Baumgartner. He's on X, at Baum CJ30. He's our go-to Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. And CJ, before we jump into all the action from tonight, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. All right, man, Twins coming into this one. They've won 3 straight series. They just took 3 of 4 from KC. That was huge as they try to, climb back into the thick of this AL Central race. But now they start a pretty brutal, pretty grueling 9-game road trip. Starts in Houston tonight, then New York, and finishes in Pittsburgh. So game 1 versus the Astros tonight. Pablo Lopez on the mound for this one. And Twins got on the board first. Correa double, Kirilloff sac fly. They go up 2-0. Pablo gets into a little trouble, a little dicey in the 4th. This is where it kind of looked like Pablo from the last few outings would maybe let this one get away from him a little bit, maybe start to unravel. Bregman makes it 2-1 with a solo shot, and then Houston gets runners on first and second with 1 out. But he gets out of the jam, kind of quiets the storm, so to speak. Larnach and Santana each add on a couple solo shots. Pablo ends up with one of the better outings we've seen from him as of late. 7 innings, 6 hits, just 1 earned run, 6 Ks on 92 pitches. And the Twins start this road trip out with a 6-1 win as they move to 32-25 on the year. I definitely want to spend a few minutes and talk about Pablo's day. But first, before we do that, just give us your biggest takeaways, kind of 8 topics from the Twins bats and how they got this dub tonight.
Carlos Correa with another big hit. He had the 3-run triple yesterday, and getting the Twins on the board with that double just feels like he's been seeing the ball really well. And obviously it means a lot for him and how much Houston has meant to his career, winning the World Series and going through all those postseason runs to come back with his team who's above 500 in the thick of the playoff race with the team he left, who's now 7-8 games below the 500 mark, to come in and kind of have a big hit like that obviously has to mean a little something for him. But just overall, Carlos Correa keeping that stick alive. He's been the Twins' best player, been the Twins' best hitter as of late, and talked about it on the last show that I was on, but just means a lot for this team, obviously, with one of their highest paid players being one of their biggest contributors, and that's always good to see. And Carlos Correa continues to with the hot bat right now.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better right now. Definitely putting the team on his back, so to speak, in some of these games and some of these big moments for sure. Let's unpack Pablo's night here for a minute because, I mean, no secret, hasn't always been pretty for him this year, to say the least. And again, that 4th inning, I'll go back to that 4th inning, was when I really thought this thing was going to turn one way or the other because he had just given up this bomb, right? A deep bomb, I think, to center field to Bregman. And then he gives up 2 more hits with only 1 out. So you got runners on first, runners on second, 1 out, but gets out of the jam, kind of calms down a little bit, and ends up going 7 full innings. I thought it was his best outing we've gotten in quite a while. What'd you see from his stuff tonight? What was working so well? And I get it. I know it's just 1 start, but how encouraging was it to finally get kind of this rock solid outing from a guy they're going to have to lean on if they're going to get hot again and make a run in the second half?
Well, yeah, exactly. And it was a very boom or bust opportunity for Pablo Lopez. Of course, the last time he pitched in Houston was that playoff game in the ALDS, and he put the team on his back, only gave up 1 run through 7 innings, had 7 strikeouts, whatever it was. I mean, we all know he was dominant in that atmosphere. And even though Houston isn't where they are typically at this point in the season, being below 500, they're still a team that can hit the ball. They have Altuve, they have Bregman, they have Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez. This team has a lot of boppers, and obviously Houston Houston's a weird ballpark. It has the capability to get away from him. Pablo Lopez in the first and the second inning had runners on base. Then in the fourth inning, gives up that home run like you talked about, gets a couple more guys on base. But after that, he locked it in. And I think at one point the Twins retired like the last 14 batters or something like that for Houston. So they really, as the start went on, Pablo Lopez got better. And what I thought was huge was his fastball and the fact that he was able to generate the whiffs. He had 17 whiffs overall in the day, straight swing and misses. 12 of those came from the fastball, which is encouraging. In a stadium like Houston, if a team is on that fastball, they're sending it into the Crawford boxes or into the bullpen or wherever. And Pablo Lopez was able to generate those swings and misses, which is huge for the pitcher that Pablo Lopez is.
By the time September rolls around, Houston's probably going to be in the thick of this whole thing when it's all said and done. I get it. They're 8 games below 500, but just for people who maybe haven't paid super close attention to kind of the entire landscape of the MLB, what's been the Astros' biggest problem, I guess, if you will? And again, they're only 8 games below 500. It's not like the sky is completely falling yet. A lot of baseball left to be played, but what has been kind of maybe 1 or 2 of their biggest issues thus far, 2 months into the season?
So they've basically had to deal with pitching injuries. Their starting rotation has been banged up. Justin Verlander's been banged up. Farmer Valdez has been banged up. You look at a couple of those guys. I know it's weird for Twins fans because sometimes we always feel like when we're just zoned in on one team that it's the Twins who only have injuries with the pitching staff. And the Astros are there. Like a lot of those guys who they're relying on to kind of be that top of the rotation have just been hurt. And as you saw today, the Twins were able to take advantage and hit a few homers and hit the ball around the yard and put up 6 runs. If you put up 6 runs in a Major League Baseball game, you're typically going to win. And that's what we saw today. I mean, Houston is a team that still can hit, even though they only scored 1 run today. We saw that they have guys up and down the lineup, but it's just been their pitching that's did them in. Their starting staff has not been effective and just constantly having to put all that pressure on the lineup that's been kind of streaky this year. So that's pretty much where it falls, is just that starting pitching has not been up to snuff. But the AL West is a lot like the AL Central last year. The Mariners, just a little bit above 500. They're clinging on to that first place spot. Oakland is a little bit better, but they're still not great. We all know the Angels are a mess. I mean, that division is wide open for Houston to come back. And if they get on a run, and the defending World Series champions and the Rangers, the Twins just saw them over the weekend, they're scuffling at the beginning of the year as well. So like you talked about, there's still a very real chance Houston can pull themselves back in, but the AL West is expected to be one of the best divisions in baseball. And it's a lot like what people thought the AL Central was going to be this year.
Yeah, really good breakdown, really good update right there on that AL West here and what this AL landscape kind of looks like thus far through 2 months there. You and I talked after game three, right, on the postcast. Seth Lugo kind of mowed this lineup down. The bats kind of went cold, right? I had the T-Wolves postcast last night, so we didn't talk last night. But we talked about they were 1 of 12 with runners in scoring position. Tonight, I get it. They were only 1 for 8. But between the 7 runs yesterday, 6 more tonight, all of a sudden, I get it. It's just 2 games, small sample. All of a sudden, though, the bats, right, this lineup, feels like it's starting to trend back in the right direction again at the plate. What's kind of been the secret sauce, if you will, in this lineup that's got them scoring so many runs again all of a sudden?
Well, the Twins, as we talked about, they've had those struggles with runners in scoring position. One of the ways you can make up for that is by just hitting a home run. And the Twins did a little bit of that with the solo shot from Carlos Santana. Larnach had a home run. And, you have some of those where you just get those run production things without the runners in scoring position. Now, you'd like to have runners on base when you hit that home run, ideally, but that's been it. If you got a guy on first and you hit a 2-run home run, that doesn't show up in the runners in scoring position. Now, it doesn't excuse the Twins for not capitalizing, but a way that they make up for that as a team is when they can hit the ball out of the yard. They haven't hit as many home runs as we've been accustomed to them seeing. Typically, they're a top 5 team in home runs by the end of the season. Last time I checked, I think they were 10th or 11th, which isn't bad, but just kind of not at the standard that they're typically at. I feel like if I checked it again, they're starting to kind of climb back up towards that top 5.
What do you think of Larnach in the 1 spot, top of the order lately? I know Julian was the guy there from the get-go, right out the gate, but then he got, he's been kind of ice cold as of late. Rocco kind of forced to switch things up. Now, all of a sudden, this kind of, just fresh pop. Sometimes that's all it really takes sometimes, just to switch things up, shuffle things around. Larnach is kind of brought to the offense a little bit. I think has really helped, not just the top of the lineup too, but maybe also letting Julian switch things up a little bit lower in the pecking order, just just to try to shake things up at this point. What do you think of this new look lineup, I guess, they've been rolling out as of late? And quick thoughts on Larnach's bat.
Yeah, I mean, Rocco Baldelli is a guy that I know everybody makes a big deal over the lineup flopping and the switching. And I mean, he's a Joe Madden guy. That's his kind of mentor, if you will, the longtime Tampa Bay Rays manager. And he would sometimes just pick lineups out of a hat. He'd just draw me like, this guy's hitting first today. This guy's hitting fourth.
That's a rumor.
Right.
He didn't really do that, though, did he?
Well, I mean, maybe, probably.
Urban legend. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. He's bringing guys into his office. What do you think the lineup should be today? And Rocco kind of follows that similar role where it's like he kind of uses it to mix and match. And Larnach is not your Ron Gardenhire, Denard Span number one hitter. He's not that kind of guy, but he's been taking some good at-bats. I know he had one where he struck out on 3 pitches earlier, but the one he hit the home run on, he had a really great at-bat to kind of work himself in and get a pitch that he can drive and hit. And that's really all you can ask for a guy at the top spot. I know speed, is kind of the traditional way, but the thing that's traditional that always works is being able to take a good at bat. And the thing that Larnach's been able to do this year, I believe he hit a home run off the fastball today, but he's been able to hit those secondary pitches, which is what he wasn't able to do earlier in his career. He would struggle against the curveball, against the off-speed pitches. You saw today, he struggled a little bit on that changeup low. He kept biting on it, but when he's been good this season, he's been able to kind of lay off some of those bad pitches, fight them off, and really take advantage when he gets his fastball. And Larnach has a chance. I mean, that left field spot is up for grabs. If he wants to consistently produce, that's right there for him to get.
Time for the Rocco Report. Favorite or least favorite move or decision, whatever it may be from today's game. Game 1 versus Houston. The Rocco Report. It says what?
Like letting Pablo go 7 innings was huge.
I was going to ask, if you didn't say that, I was going to ask you that anyway. That was going to be my follow-up. Were you surprised they unleashed Pablo for that 7th inning?
I'm not surprised because Baldelli has shown a lot of trust in Pablo. And I think it shows that, it's not only I trust you to go get that, but it's a way of like, hey man, you had a good start. And sometimes, with a lesser starter, Baldelli will pull them early because I'm going to let you have this good outing. I'm not going to give you the opportunity to go out there and kind of mess it up and leave it with a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. With Lopez, Baldelli trusts him to go out there and do that. His pitch count was low. He was getting better as the start went on, and he was just in a groove, and props to Baldelli for letting him go and do that. The other thing is the Carlos Santana pinch hit later in the game. I can't remember who he pinch hit for, but I think it was Kirilloff. He gets in the game. Kirilloff had a good sac fly, RBI, but, bring in the lefty. That means you bring in, they brought in a lefty on the mound, which means you bring in Carlos Santana, and his second at-bat of the game hits a big home run to kind of give the Twins a little bit more breathing room late. There was a graphic on the Bally broadcast that talked about the Twins lead the league in pinch hitters, and that time it works. So it's a good day if you're Mr. Baldelli.
Well said. Plenty more deep dive from this one. Game 1, 6-1 win over Houston. Plus, we got a nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the MLB. Right now, playoff time still in the NBA and NHL, not to mention baseball, obviously in full swing. That means FanDuel is your #1 place to be to bet on all the action. Check this out. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Bet on anything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the app. That's safe, secure, and easy to use. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a huge win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the MLB. Bigger picture here, just for a second. I know this team is still on pace to win over 90 games. I know that's rock solid. That'd be nice. But all in all, there have been some rough patches along the way at times this season. So I'm just curious, who do you think's more to blame for those struggles? The ownership and the fact that they slashed that payroll by $30 million, that was such an atypical offseason, kind of handcuffed the front office a little bit, or the few players that they did go after and spend some money on, they just haven't played up to the level they were expected to pretty much across the board, I might add. So more to blame, ownership getting stingy or the players just kind of not living up to their contracts and expectations we had when we brought them in?
I mean, you certainly can put some blame on ownership and the lack of spending and the fact that, basically their biggest free agent was Carlos Santana, who's had his moments and has certainly picked himself up after a poor first month, but still overall not, typically where you'd want him to be as consistent, but that does deserve some blame. But I think the majority of the blame, probably about 80%, does have to just fall on the players. And specifically when you look at core players, guys who they really expected. Last year, the 3 rookies carried them on the back end of 2023. When you look at Royce Lewis, Matt Wallner, and Ed Julian. Matt Wallner's in AAA. Ed Julian, his batting average is below 200, or at least around that point, and he's batting now in the bottom 3 of the lineup, and Royce Lewis has been hurt since opening day. So you're just not getting production from some of these guys who you really expected to carry you. Now, Carlos Correa's made up for that. Byron Buxton hasn't quite gotten to the production level you'd like him to be at too. So I think, when you look at 3 of the guys in your lineup who are just, you were expecting them to be in the top part of your lineup, be big contributors. And when that doesn't happen, it's not necessarily it's not like they're not trying or anything. It's not their fault that way, but you're just hoping that those guys bring you some production, and they just haven't. And that's kind of been some of the reason why you've just had this up and down part.
Yeah, no, well said there. Good breakdown on that. And I completely agree. If we're going to bust out the blame pie chart, I think about 75-80% does have to land where you said. Royce Lewis, we touched on him already after that game 3 last time you and I spoke on the postcast versus the Royals. I don't want to get back into the same topic, but I will say this, obviously fans are just kind of waiting on pins and needles for the guy to get back. That goes without saying, but it really feels like now when it comes to like who's getting the boot when he gets back, that all of a sudden you look around, there's like 5 or 6 legitimate options and names we kind of have to discuss. Does that number sound right to you? And who are the guys that potentially are in play to kind of get shuffled around when Royce Lewis does finally return?
I mean, there's a host of different guys. You could send down Miranda just because there's too many guys in the kitchen and maybe his role's a little redundant. You have the Larnach/Kirilloff. You could go into those 2 guys because, again, corner outfield spot, left-handed hitters. Larnach, I know, had the home run today and the home run a few days ago, but neither one are really consistently flashing. You could DFA a guy like Manuel Margot or Kyle Farmer. That, like you talked about, there's a few different options they can go. But honestly, I don't really know what direction they go because Miranda's been playing well enough where he hasn't really earned a demotion. Kirilloff and Larnach, it'd be a little weird to kind of send those guys down at this point. The Twins are very hesitant to DFA veterans this early in the season, with Farmer and Margot. I mean, I don't know where they pull. My guess is it probably ends up being somebody like Larnach or Kirilloff, probably Larnach, but I don't know. Like it's a good problem to have if you're the Twins, but it's a
great
tough
problem to have, man. But so you're saying, and this sounds about, kind of on track and about right to what everybody else is kind of saying, thinking and feeling, is that it's just tough to get a vibe. It's tough to put your finger on this thing. There's not a lot of tangible evidence that kind of leads us in one direction. So of the 5 or 6 names that you did kind of rifle off there, who's the one guy? I mean, I think maybe you already mentioned it, maybe Larnach, I guess, but who's the one guy that if you had to put money on, you think will get the boot, and the one guy you're most confident will end up staying and is kind of the safest of those 5 or 6 names?
So I think the safest one is probably Kyle Farmer, just because he's a veteran because
DFA
the Twins.
Him. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, they value his leadership a lot in the clubhouse. He's just an overall good guy to have in there. Not that Manuel Margot and some of those other guys aren't, but he's been with this club a whole year. They're paying him a lot of money, and I think based for kind of what his role is, and I think that they'll just end up keeping him. I feel like he's the safest. My pick would be Larnach because he's been already up and down, throughout the last few years. Anyways, sending him down. Obviously you probably wouldn't like it, but it's probably the way to go because it doesn't necessarily upset the order. If you send down somebody like Kirilloff or Larnach, or excuse me, Kirilloff or Julian, like they've never really earned demotions, and that'd be kind of just a weird message to send. Miranda hasn't necessarily earned a demotion either with how well he's been playing, and Royce Lewis isn't necessarily going to play every day at third when he comes back. There's the DH role that's open. You might try and rest him early, and it's a good opportunity to kind of let Miranda play a few more games and see how long he can keep that hot stretch going. So I feel like sending down Larnach is just going to be kind of what they do, and they'll kind of piece things together from there. Willie Castro and Kirilloff can kind of handle left field. Royce Lewis sticks in at third. Miranda kind of backs him up. And then you have Julian at second. Farmer kind of being that utility guy around the infield again.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see how all that ends up shaking out. I haven't talked bullpen with you, I feel like, in a few weeks. Just kind of curious what the latest is in that department right now, because I know between Jorge Alcala, Diego Castillo, it feels like Rocco's got some more options to play with that he can kind of just tinker around, shuffle back and forth now. Plus, obviously, still got the main guys like Okert, Sands, others doing their thing. So I guess what's just like the overall vibe back there in the bullpen as of late? Whose stock's kind of pointing up the last week or so, if you had to pick one or two guys?
Jorge Alcala's stock is going up. He hit 101 or 100 on his last outing yesterday, which is great for him. Alcala, we always know, could be a gasser. It's can he consistently stay around the strike zone has kind of been his thing. But I mean, he's a guy that every single year I'm always like in the offseason, I'll always write a piece, or I'll think about writing one where it's like, is this the year Jorge Alcala finally breaks out? And I think this is the year where he's just been more consistent. Now, he's been up and down because he has options, but that's a guy whose stock I'm going to buy. And if he can consistently throw 100 miles an hour, or at least get that a couple times each time he goes out there to throw, that's huge. And Ryan Jeffers added after the game yesterday, I can't remember how he specifically phrased it, but basically, like, if he can do stuff like that, he can be a huge late inning option. And the Twins really do need that one extra guy. Justin Topa obviously had his injury setback, and Brock Stewart is hurt right now, and who knows when he's coming back. So they're missing still probably one high leverage reliever, high leverage setup man. Griffin Jacks has been doing a good job. Okert's been doing a good job kind of stepping in, but they really need one of those guys back. And if Alcala can step up and get some of those high leverage innings, that changes the complexion of the bullpen a lot.
All right, nerdy stat of the daytime. Any crazy or fun stat or analytic you got for us Twins related? Lay it on us.
So I was thinking about Carlos Correa because obviously he had a great game today playing in his old ballpark at Minute Maid Park. And he obviously had the great playoff game on game 2. He had a big RBI, really helped out the Twins in that game back in October. And it kind of got me thinking, like, what is Carlos Correa's numbers at Minute Maid Park as a visitor, as a Minnesota Twin? And it's not great, actually. It's really bad. He has a 103 career batting average in 8 games, a 156 on base, and a 138 slugging, a 294 OPS, and has grounded into 2 double plays. He's only had 1 double and 3 hits, one of them being a double. And that's not counting today's game. So this game obviously changes it a little bit. But I thought he'd be somebody who's very comfortable in that ballpark and doing a lot of stuff, but really has struggled there against Astros pitching, which is probably more of the tell. So it's good for him to get back on track and send a message kind of to that team. Obviously, they didn't want to extend him, and to come back in with your new squad that you're kind of leading and just playing very well is obviously, to a guy like Correa, who that stuff means a lot to him, he's got to be feeling good when he puts his head on the pillow tonight.
I know it's a long grind, man, the baseball season, 162 games. I know a lot of these guys don't play all 162, but Correa gets amped up for these series versus Houston. No doubt about it. All right, don't go anywhere. We got to preview game 2 versus Houston tomorrow and this long road trip the Twins are on. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Stitch Fix. Guys, sometimes the biggest cliches in life, they're cliches because they're true. And one of the best cliches that resonates with me is, if you look good, you feel good. And I always feel my best when I use Stitch Fix, because with Stitch Fix, you get your own personal stylist who understands your style, your size, most importantly, your budget. And the best part is they do all the shopping for you. That makes it, without a doubt, the easiest way to update your wardrobe closet for the summer season. All you got to do, you tell your stylist your size, style, and budget, and they take care of the rest. And my favorite part, no subscription required. You just order a new box, how you want it, when you want it. And if you don't like it, no problem. You send it back on the house, free shipping, free returns, free exchanges. It's style that makes you feel as good as you look. So go get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB. That's stitchfix.com/MLB. All right, game 2 versus Houston tomorrow. Twins looking to take their 4th series win in a row if they can win that one tomorrow. Joe Ryan on the mound, a guy who, we talking about Alcala kind of increasing some velocity. Joe Ryan started to increase some velocity on some of his pitches the last few outings as well. Obviously, that's super encouraging to see. What are the, top 2-3 things you're looking for tomorrow in this game?
Basically to see if Joe Ryan can keep it up. He's been the Twins' best starter this season. And again, a good lineup in Houston, a lineup that can hit the ball out of the ballpark, especially in that stadium. So it'll be really interesting to see if Joe Ryan can keep the ball in the yard or at least keep it to a minimum. Kind of see if he can keep that going for the Twins. And other than that, I think basically we're just looking for in game 2 is just seeing if that lineup top to bottom can keep contributing. That's been the story the last 5-ish games. It's felt like 1 through 9 again, that they're a team that can, you can't pitch at anybody. There's nobody who's that kind of automatic out. It feels like anybody can get you at any given moment. And if the Twins can win the series, that'll be huge because, as I mentioned this on the last show, I think is, the winning streaks are fun and the losing streaks and, everything, there's always a lot that goes into it. But the one thing that a good team consistently does more than winning a lot of games in a row is winning a lot of series in a row.
Right.
That's more sustainable than a winning streak. And they've really only lost a few series on the season. Now they've gotten swept. It felt like in those series that they've
swept
lost.
By Cleveland, swept by the Yankees, right back to back there. They had that low cold sweats. But you're right. You look back big picture. We should pull that up actually. Maybe next postcast we'll do that. But you're right. It hasn't been a lot this year. You're totally right.
Right. And it just allows them to consistently kind of keep getting their record better. I know it's been in a tough spot a couple times, but to consistently win series, if you treat a series win just as its own game, that kind of is how you get the mark of a good ball club. And that's how teams see it as well. They see it as winning series, not necessarily winning games. They're not up and down with every single game, but every series you kind of do a little vibe check and see how your team's feeling.
Yeah, no doubt. Been consistent on that front, to say the least. Bigger picture then. All right, you got this 9-game road trip we're on now. Again, Houston, Yankees, Pittsburgh. You get the first one tonight, which is great, but still a lot of work remains to be done. What are some of the biggest keys to this stretch coming up, especially knowing, again, they got to go face the Yankees, who they, just got swept by them a few weeks ago, not that long ago. Couple things you're kind of keying in on now on this 9-game road trip.
Well, it's interesting that the Houston series might be their best chance to get a series win out of any of these 3 on the road trip because it's a tough place to play. And the Astros are the closest thing we have to a dynasty right now. But the Yankees have the second best record in the American League. And obviously going into that place has been a house of horrors for the Minnesota Twins. But then you got to go to Pittsburgh, which, they're not necessarily a great team, but their manager, Derek Shelton, knows the Twins well, former Twins bench coach for Rocco Baldelli, and they have Paul Skeens, and that rotation has 2 of the best young starting pitchers in baseball. I don't know if the Twins are lined up to face Skeens, but if they are, it's going to be tough. So weirdly enough, this might be kind of their best chance to kind of pick up some wins over this 9-game road trip. But the good news is hopefully next week, Royce Lewis is back on the team, and that'll certainly help. And Royce Lewis coming back against the Yankees maybe is the thing we need to kind of snap them out of this funk a little bit.
And the good news is, too, if they can survive this little stretch or this 9-game road trip, you get 10 games at home coming back right in a row, which is really nice to see. So take care of business now and maybe really do some real damage when you get 10 in a row back at home after the fact. Okay, let's just end with this before we get out of here. Per Aaron Gleeman, after starting 7-13, the Twins are an AL best 25-12 record the last 37 games. So their stock is clearly trending in the right direction, right? What's been the biggest catalyst for that success? And do you think it's sustainable? Is it pitching, hitting, 1 or 2 specific guys? What is it?
Well, it's been hitting because they even when they were down, it's felt like the pitching was okay. It felt like they always weren't getting enough run support for those pitchers. And specifically, it felt like they were striking out a lot. I know, the Twins kept whiffing on the sliders from opposing teams. They saw a whole bunch of them. They didn't see a lot of fastballs. The Twins made that adjustment, and it's been huge. And they brought this up on the Bally broadcast. The Twins, in that stretch where they were 7-13, struck out one of the most in baseball. They were like 29th in baseball with strikeouts. Right now, they're at about 17th. And from that, when they started winning those games to get that AL best, they've been, an above average team in terms of their strikeout rate. And the Twins are never going to be a team that's, top 5 in striking out the least. They're going to be a team that strikes out a lot, But if you can, you're not going to be a great team if you're towards the bottom in that category. If you're around league average, you're sitting pretty well. So the fact that the Twins have gotten run production and cut out that strikeout rate has been the biggest thing. And it's been sustainable for the last month. I feel like that, it was similar to the second half of last year. Bad strikeout rate in the first half. They turned it around in the second half. They made those adjustments, and it looks like they're doing the same thing this year.
Yeah, really good point right there. Hopefully they can keep that up for sure. Well done, my man. Always a lot of fun talking Twins with you. Twins win game 1 in Houston, 6-1. Pablo Lopez, he gets the dub after 7 one-run innings. Game 2 tomorrow. Joe Ryan on the mound for that one. First pitch, 3:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. As always, huge shout out to everyone that joined us in the stream. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. And quick reminder, got to go check out all of CJ's work on X at BaumCJ30, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com. Plus, if it's not too much trouble, go like this video, go subscribe to the channel, help us get to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated. All right, that'll do it for us tonight. C.J. Baumgartner. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you next time. But until then, signing out.